All right, welcome back to another installment of the Safety First podcast. What I wanted to cover today in this meeting is going to be maybe 2 or 3 part sections, make this a little bit shorter than I have over a topic. The topic's going to be over job hazard analysis or JHAs, just the original JHA outline. So what I want to jump into is really talking about what is the purpose of a JHA, right? Identify the purpose of JHA, recognize the benefits of why we do it, and then kind of understand, potentially get into the process of conducting a JHA. And again, as we grow this a little bit, maybe we can do a kind of a video version, training with others involved of a JHA process. It's kind of just time for pretending. I do want to make a disclaimer though. I do this in one take. So if I do make mistakes, I'm not going to edit it. I want it as real and as raw as possible. Kind of get the human element in this a little bit, as much as possible. But I got a good slideshow that I'm gonna share here that does a pretty good job outlining really essentially what I want to cover when it comes to JHAs. So, um, all right, so I highlighted what we're going to cover today. We're going to identify the purpose of a JHA, recognize the benefits of a JHA. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of understanding the process as we go forward, but I'm going to cut this short and kind of cut this down a little bit and then analyze jobs, effectively to detect and corrective actions. So, again, that would be something we'll later do. I'm going to skip the pre-quiz. This is pretty good to utilize. Again, there's questions before the actual agenda that ask these questions, but you can see here the answers. OSHA doesn't have any regulation on JHAs. Gives some guidelines for JHAs. Obviously, it's recommended that we do a job hazard analysis on our processes to figure out what the risks are, and I'll try to eliminate them the best as we can with utilizing the hierarchy controls. JHA helps reduce workplace absences. Yeah, that's true. And then the first step of JHA is, I think they'll give that is break down the job, right? It'd be nice if you have an SOP already has a job broke down. We can utilize, we can break down the job into job steps, and go through them in more detail. Again, from an OSHA perspective, there's no specific JHA standard necessarily. Right, they do provide guidelines, but limited guidelines. I know if you have an accident, injury, a fatality, anything from a compliance standpoint, they're going to ask, if there has been, a risk assessment, hazard assessment, done on that task, right? And that's when a JHA is good for that. JHAs are also really good for training purposes. If you have that, recommended, right, to have them readily available on the floor. For new hire orientations on the job training, have those JHAs ready for you to utilize to your advantage in training new people, or rehashing with seasoned employees, for obvious reasons, complacency reasons, etc. They can be called job safety analysis too. There's more than one way to skin a cat. All right. So what is a JHA? Get into it. Big point of the subject topic of today is, method of identifying your hazards. It means of breaking down the job down into job steps. System for easily understanding your hazards. So why do we perform a JHA? So this is something too that I'd like to get into a little bit more. Not only are we identifying risks, identifying potential hazards, obviously with those that we compile and we do a JHA, we want to prioritize and risk rank our corrective actions based off of data from the JHA. But there's some cost savings in here. There's compliance regulatory things that we can get out of here. JHAs, in the past been associated with improving productivity. My philosophy is, there's a correlation between an efficient work environment and a safe work environment. You get employees engaged, which is very beneficial, especially if you're trying to change culture and get that proactive mindset, incorporating employees into giving them a task like a JHA and performing. And then once you identify those hazards, you put corrective actions on them. And once you correct those corrective actions, right, kind of reinforces that positive behavior. Ultimately, reduce and eliminate hazards, which is going to reduce and eliminate risks and injuries. Benefits of JHAs: improve safety performance. That's what we want. Reduce absences, increase productivity, like I said, improve morale. All this goes into kind of what I just reiterated is, you're involving people, right? It's not just, hey, the supervisor, manager, operations lead, safety guy is telling me I have to do it this way. So now it's like, okay, get people into the room or out on the floor. I like to do my JHAs, a little bit of both, right? You need to go out onto the shop floor, manufacturing area, wherever you work, run through the actual job step by step, at least discuss it if you can, and then maybe go back to the classroom or office and articulate that down on the JHA form. There's many of JHA forms that you can use, and again, the next section or the next version of this episode would be going through the form. Maybe be not the next one, but maybe the third one. But obviously, improving morale. You're always, having some RCI mix in this and continuously improving your work environment. And that safety is always hand in hand with that. Um, Assist in OSHA compliance, right? If you're doing a job hazard analysis, you're going to figure out things that are non or at risk or exposures that we need to eliminate. And again, that goes into some OSHA compliance with that. If you have an OSHA inspector come in, maybe we're violating some standards of theirs or even just the general duty clause, right? We have a known risk. We need to protect our employees on said risk or at least mitigate that risk. Maybe it's ergonomic factors that we identify that are a higher risk, right? What are some of the tools that we can utilize, some of the technologies that we can utilize to help reduce that risk? And again, the form that I'll show you, I like because it is a spreadsheet based and it gives you a good formula of risk ranking each of your steps to help you prioritize which items you need to look at from a mitigation standpoint. But again, we'll get into a later episode. How are jobs selected? So this is important too. Kind of the basis of this in the beginning of doing a JHA. It's like, okay, do we just throw a dart at a map and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do a JHA on? No, it's typically, unfortunately, you can use reactive metrics. You got stuff that you've had accidents on, even near misses on. Um, Hopefully, you have employees coming to you saying, hey, we have a risk here, or we have a new process involved. Right, all those can stir for JHA. We have PSIF or SIFT, right? Serious or injury, fatality, or potential of serious injury and fatality. High potential exposures based off your industry, whatever that might be. If you're in manufacturing, food manufacturing, processing plants, steel industry, warehouse, right? What are your high potential exposures? Is it confined space? Is it hoisting risks? Lockout, tag out, fall protection, right? All those kind of high potential exposure tasks that we do um, can classify for a JJ. It's really target rich environment, honestly, in a lot of industries. Procedures, processing, equipment changes. Like I said, if you get new processes involved, new equipment that you've installed, right? Maybe through the MOC process that we have, hopefully, you got a new piece of equipment, you have a process change, you have some way of managing that change through an MOC, right? Manager of change. And then part of that is a JHA, doing a hazard analysis on it. right? Even if it's a new equipment that you're designing and trying to sell to the market, do we do a risk assessment on that, right? Maybe it's not a full out JHA that you might sell it to a customer and they should do, but maybe it's just a risk assessment on the new machine that you design you're trying to sell, right? That kind of goes in there too. And then all the jobs that you may see that may be a risk. Who's involved? JHA. It's a good one too. Safety personnel, myself, safety leads, safety anybody that wears a safety hat, which should be everybody in the company. Um, Department managers and supervisors, employees who perform the jobs. Very critical that we pull in people that are actually doing the job to do a JHA. Same way with any kind of maybe investigations, any risk assessments outside of a JHA. We involve the employees that work doing that job. Where the rubber meets the road per se. Um, Design engineers, maintenance personnel. Um, how are hazards identified, right? So how do we identify hazards, right, outside of maybe your near misses? Maybe it's things that come up general inspections, special inspections, OSHA inspections, walk around inspections, right? Just your near misses, your observations, all that can identify the hazards, right? Identifying the hazards when you're doing a JHA, you go out there and you inspect, right? Talk about the process, the job steps, and then you inspect, is that a hazard, right? Ask the questions. A lot of these things are only good as the questions that you ask. That's why it's good to get a good sample set of people throughout your business to conduct a JHA. A lot of these shouldn't take days to do. A lot of these can be pretty quick, and I wouldn't say short, but they can be quick and thorough all at the same time, especially if you have the right people in the room that know how to do the jobs, and you can outline the steps, and you can really focus in on your hazards and identification, right? So I'm going to skip the OSHA section here, and what I'm probably going to do is break out of here and see what we got left here. I probably won't go through the rest of this. I kind of want to just cover the basics of the reasons why we want to do a JHA. And then, I want to make this a little bit short. I can make this extremely long if I want to, and I don't really want to do that. I want to cut this down a little bit as best as possible. But, some of the things that we might cover obviously next with this would be, the process, the JHA process, which looked like the PowerPoint was going to get into, which I've reviewed this PowerPoint many times. Tools and techniques. Involving employees, we can talk a little bit about how you involve your employees in a JHA the right way. Um, you know, Implementation, continuous improvement, training and education on the JHA. How do you implement your corrective actions? Once the corrective actions are implemented, you should go back and redo that JHA. I have an example of that actually that we can cover on a later sample set. But from our JHA section of the Safety First podcast, episode 1, if you want to say, I think I'll end that there. So please comment with any kind of suggestions, and then we will obviously see you for the next one. Appreciate your time.